Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world, and supply chain issues continue to plague the globe. This is resulting in increased inflation. And Reuters, on that note, is reporting that the dollar is at a 16-month peak as focus turns to retail sales data. Bloomberg reports ships keep coming, pushing U.S. port logjam to records, in particular at the LA port, Los Angeles, California. CNBC reports Biden signs a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill into law, unlocking funds for transportation, broadband, and utilities, among other things. On the industry side, before we get into the industry side, we'll define industry. Occasionally we do this. Our industry is defined by datasets. Natural language processing, natural language understanding, that's NLP and NLU. Language models, AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, applied to space biosciences and the financial markets. Bloomberg reports, under industry, Google CEO sees company's next trillion in value from search and AI. CNBC reports Crypto.com purchases naming rights to iconic Staples Center at $700 million. NVIDIA data center sales grow 55% on demand for artificial intelligence chips. And under themes and events, the port issue and the supply chain issue. Those are resulting in unique baskets that some are trading on the short side, some on the long side. The metaverse is a growing theme, and we are tracking baskets related to that, both on the crypto side and on the traditional side. Although we are not automatically generating baskets for the crypto side. We will be shortly. We are always on the watch for global events, and that happens on the Thematic Basket channel. If you'd like to join, feel free. You can contact us anytime online, and we will structure an invite for you. On the corp side, HR, facilities, and legal. Everything is in process and moving right along. We are anticipating taking a little bit more time on the facilities side in terms of securing an HQ. One of the reasons for that is we do have requirements related to a wet lab. On the capital raising side, we intend to close on a round of capital before Christmas. Some might consider that quite a feat, but the demand is there. Next, we'll move to engineering, product QA, and ops. We'll start with Space Biosciences. We are developing a human-in-the-loop curation interface for all things related to space biosciences, and this means that for our scientific collaborators, their researchers within their labs, their scientists, will be able to provide input in real time to the relationship networks, the graph networks that we generate that relate proteins to drug compounds, proteins to other proteins. We are repurposing that curation interface from another project with CSSI, which we have talked about in the past. So when it comes to ramping up with our scientific collaborators, it starts with data sources. In fact, everything that we do starts with data sources. And if you'd like to get an idea of the kind of data sources that we'll be leveraging within Space Biosciences, you can do a search for biological data sources on Google. There you'll be directed to a Wikipedia page, which gives you a pretty good exhaustive list. What you'll see there would be sources that we develop targeted crawling systems for. We ingest that data and we bring them into standard vanilla indexers, search indices, And then we take it from there in terms of producing input files and pre-processing and developing custom stop words, working with ontologies and controlled vocabularies to then develop the initial data sets after extracting the vectors. On the financial market side, we are developing crypto baskets. We're finally beginning work on that. We anticipate the first crypto baskets to be available the first quarter of 2022. However, this might happen a little sooner. One of the reasons for that is LCX has made contact with us. That's an exchange that is interested in using our thematic basket technology to provide to their trader base so that they can generate baskets based on global events or generate crypto baskets based on concepts like the metaverse in real time. We'll move on to customers, partners, and collaborators. We have no new partners or collaborators in the pipeline, and one of the reasons for that is we are focused now on delivery. We are 100% focused on delivery, and that starts with our Space Biosciences efforts. And underneath Space Biosciences, you would see ICL, that's Imperial College of London, and University College London. So we'll have a focus on that. We'll have a focus on those collaborators until we reach a milestone in terms of a group of deliverables that we'll achieve for them. An initial phase. Under financial markets, and we're still under customers, partners, and collaborators. We met with Insight Partners, that's insightpartners.com. They're in the process of raising $60 billion. They're out of New York. They also have Silicon Valley offices. They reached out to us and wanted to talk about what we were doing, talk about valuation related to liquid crypto arms combined with standard private equity arms. And our discussions will continue likely into next year with Insight Partners. What we have done is we have placed Morningstar and S&P on hold, and that's so that we can let the public know that we are focused on ICL and UCL, focused on the science. Once the public announcements are out there, we are then going to restart our talks with Morningstar and S&P. We haven't stopped our talks with Morningstar or S&P. What we want to do is give them something to work with. What we do is unbelievable, and it's very important for any large multi-billion-dollar company like Morningstar or S&P to know what they're dealing with and to be able to talk to the world about a company that is achieving progress with scientific collaborators. And that's why we're waiting for the public announcements, and we will keep the public informed about the progress of that. But we intend to lead with the science, and that's essentially what Morningstar would like us to do. And that's probably going to take about another 2 weeks at this point before we restart with Morningstar. It could happen sooner. We know that we have a little bit of time based on the offering that Morningstar is producing, based on their notebook offering, and that won't be ready until the first quarter of next year. So we are going to take it slow and methodically, brick by brick, making sure that we do it right. On the corporate dev and sales and marketing side, everything is in process, with the exception of our retail offering, which we'll be offering sooner than later. So it's a little bit more than in process, and in fact we've added the retail offering to this entire process of sales and marketing. When you look at a retail offering, it itself can be a form of marketing. The more people talk about your product, the better. If the hallmark of a great product is when you have people recommending it to their friends. And we want to get it to that point, and the way to get it to that point is to analyze the returns on the crypto basket side. So a retail offering on the traditional side is not an issue for us. That's not a problem at all. What we want to do is roll out a retail offering not just for traditional but for crypto at the same time. And this is so that crypto exchanges can use what we have in terms of generating thematic baskets based on global events in real time. But none of that matters if the returns aren't there. So we're going to spend some time back-testing the returns. We've talked about this before. But on the engineering level, we're going to take it up a notch so that we can see if we can kick this out sooner than later, as mentioned, sooner than the first quarter. And it's not just one exchange that we'll be working with on this level. We'll be in dialogue with multiple exchanges, including KuCoin, in fact, based on offering thematic baskets of crypto. So you might say that market forces are at work, moving us in this direction. And that really connects to revenue for us. When we look at a retail basket offering, it's not just a matter of showcasing our prowess and the returns that can be generated from real-time crypto baskets associated to global events. It's really a way for us to generate consequential revenue. And that's what we focus on. That's what we've been talking about as our focus for quite some time. On the exchanges side, we have two targets. And we're not going to be mentioning the names of the targets until we have the listing process in progress. Once we have it in progress, we will be talking about the names before we're listed. And we believe that the two names will be exchanges that everyone is more than happy with. On the IR, PR, and Marcom side, we are maintaining coordination with ICL, that's Imperial College of London, and UCL in terms of their PR departments. So essentially, you'll be hearing from across the pond before Christmas. Next, we have questions from the trader base. But before we get into questions from the trader base, we'd like to announce that there is an open invitation to anyone who would like to supply us with strategic advice related to marketing, related to closing deals, securing deals, pipelining deals. We do require, though, that you have closed deals yourself and have been involved with founding companies from the ground up. Question 1. I had a question concerning clarity when it comes to the partnerships VectorspaceAI has announced with CERN and Microsoft, etc. I was wondering if there's any proof outside of VectorspaceAI's website that gives confirmation to this announcement that it's true. Well, we won't be providing any email communication. That's in confidence. You won't get public announcements from us, but you will get public announcements from them, and it will be at their timing. That's how it works. Question 2, why is VectorSpaceAI confident in their tech not being reproducible? Is it possible to answer this without the secret sauce? And they quote, the secret sauce. Yes, it is. This goes back to our history as software engineers. Early on, as junior software engineers, it's common to make the mistake to develop something that can be easily duplicated and then to, again, release that as a commercial product. We actually made that mistake a long time ago. This was before the year 2000. And We spent 6 months around the clock developing a piece of software. It was called Digital Trader, by the way. And it was the world's first HTTP-based only stock ticker, along with a bunch of charts and graphs. We've talked about this before. Overnight, we had Yahoo, if anybody remembers that company, release a similar product, and that just blew us out of the water. They duplicated us. We learned our lesson, and we learned it hard. We're not going to learn that lesson again. We have moats of moats of moats of moats now, and that's how we develop. We develop software, we develop algorithms, technologies that are 10 years ahead of their time. For that reason, not just 2 years. We know what to keep as secret sauce, and we know what to release as a patent or within the provisional patent process. So we are very well protected in that area. Question 3. Kasian mentioned hiring a PR marketing person in one of the conference calls. Is this done? And when will the rebranding happen? Well, first off, what kind of marketing are we talking about here? If it's marketing that results in revenue, yes, that is done. When it comes to marketing the token, that is not something that we do. We do not promote VXV as a utility token. We promote our datasets. So marketing when it comes to our datasets, marketing that's connected to revenue, that is a long game, and that's what we're in the process of. Question 4. While it's been mentioned many times that the company had planned on buying back as much as possible of VXV tokens through consequential revenue, does the company have a firm percentage target out of the 50 million maximum supply that it plans to buy back? For example, 99% of 50 million, 85% of 50 million, etc. The answer to that is as much as possible so that we get our float down to 10 million. Right now it's a little above, it's close to 40. So we want to get it back down to 10. That's the only way to do it. Question 5. Given that VXV is an ERC20 token, is it even possible to take a hash of the token? Since it is just a simple recorded balance and has no identity, like an NFT, for example, ERC 721. We have heard that VXV is not spent when using VectorspaceAI services, so hashing a transaction is also out of the question. Can the DPP, that's the data provenance pipeline, work with these constraints? Well, first off, there are a number of technical details related to our data provenance pipeline, and that relates to core software engineering. And when it comes to creating hashes of a token, that's not all that we do. We don't just rely on the hash associated to a token. We hash an entire data set. That hash can be combined with other hashes. That hash can be combined with other kinds of data, other kinds of metadata, or triangulated data for that matter. And it's all about the VXV in circulation. VXV circulates. Because it circulates, that is a process of recycling, and that's part of the key. Aside from that, many of you might have heard that Mark Andreessen mentioned that software is eating the world. So this is a matter of software engineering. This is a matter of being able to modify the chain and modify the transaction and modify the data set in a way that enables data provenance, data governance, data lineage, and most importantly, data security. Now, we're not going to provide many more details than that. We'd be exposing an attack surface and a bit of intellectual property. So beyond that, trade secrets related to data provenance is another reason that we will not be duplicated anytime soon. Question 6, just wanted to ask, how does the blockchain tie in with analytical software? Is the blockchain purely used to value datasets, or does the AI use blockchain to analyze data? Our recommendation would be to read our documentation and search for the word provenance. On our Telegram channel, even better, search for the word provenance. That's PROVENANCE. Question 7. Can you speak on the relationship between Pomovi/Songcoin, or why there's still bits of StarMine links that send you to Vectorspace? So we will try to make this story as short as possible. In 2014, we were asked by Max Grant, who ran a small public company, to produce a subsidiary. And initially, he wanted to compete with Instagram, but that's for $250,000, but that's another story. We encouraged him to move into crypto. One of the reasons for that is based on our experience in the music industry and with small artists that don't get paid. We wanted to develop a music stock market eventually, so that you can short songs you don't like, you can go long on songs you do like. We decided to hire a developer from Namecoin, one of the founding developers there on the founding development team. Namecoin is the world's second crypto. And back in 2014, you had to develop your own wallet. So that required a bit of extra funding. But by that time, our investor, Max Grant, was a little too concerned about crypto in general, and he thought there was a bit too much risk for him. So after a lot of press that we got related to creating a crypto for the music industry, if you do a search for Pomovi, that's Pimovi, and the word Songcoin, one word, SONGCOIN, and Franks, my last name, you'll find several articles in 2014, including one from Spotify's Evolver related to our group creating a crypto for the music industry called Songcoin. And what we did was, with this developer, we forked Bitcoin, and it was eventually, our branding was ripped off. Our thunder was stolen by a person by the name of David Prince, also in Australia. And if you do a search on our channel, on our Telegram channel, for the name David Prince, that will provide you with the entire story. So this story is not too long. Question 8. Does Vectorspace have access to D-Wave computers? Not yet. Question 9. Now that UCL and ICL are at the forefront of the VexMind, will we be hearing any more updates on Morningstar in the near or very near future? Feels like a cliffhanger just before the big reveal. And more importantly, any updates / PR related to VectorspaceAI from Morningstar. So as mentioned, this time we have been the ones to buy about 2 weeks buy some time with Morningstar, about 2 weeks. And one of the reasons for that is, we touched on it earlier, is really just to allow a window for a few public announcements from a few of our scientific advisors to take place before we move forward full bore with Morningstar. We remain excited about what we're doing with Morningstar, and so do they. So it's really all about a new kind of data set, a correlation matrix data set that they'll be able to offer their customers. that will provide real-time thematic baskets of stocks related to global events. That's not something that they have ever offered. That's not something that is available in the financial markets today. So we both, Morningstar and ourselves, are rip-roaring and ready to go on that. We just want those public announcements out first. It would be much better if those public announcements were out before Morningstar's customers began to be introduced to us. Question 10. Where can we see a breakdown of current and historical revenues for the company? Are there any published docs on VectorspaceAI's website or elsewhere to this effect? Well, we will follow, as we have, continue to follow industry standard practices for reporting revenue and for private companies and technology startups when it comes to reporting revenue. If you do a search on Google for revenue reporting in private companies, you'll find more information. Question 11. Is C3.ai VectorSpaceAI's biggest competitor? What differentiates the two of them? Well, the first part of that is no. And the second, what differentiates us? Well, we develop algorithms from the ground up. We do not use off-the-shelf or third-party solutions on the enterprise level. And we produce correlation matrix datasets based on language models. That's not something that they do. Question 12. Since you have full regulation within the United States, is there a possibility that we will see a Coinbase listing in the near future? Well, first off, nobody has full regulation within the United States. There is not one crypto company that is fully regulated because the regulation is changing constantly. However, we can be as close as possible. And for the second part of that question, a Coinbase listing, absolutely. That's a given, practically. Question 13. Why are none of the team members on social media but are on Telegram constantly? Well, the only thing that we can say here is that you can judge us by our actions, not our words. There's also a latency difference between other social media outlets and Telegram instant messaging. Question 14. If these deals are taking place, why can't they be posted on your website or show some hard proof? Well, if you've ever done a deal before, that's not how it works. We won't be sharing any confidential email communications. We won't be sharing any non-confidential email communications. That's bad form. What we will do is operate at the speed of our billion-dollar and trillion-dollar partners, not at yours or at the speed of your pocketbook. Question 15. Why have none of the other companies VXV partnered with made any announcements or acknowledgments of any kind on these agreements? Well, again, it's timing. At the right time, they will. There's no reason to announce a partnership when there's progress that has not been made. So we are making progress. After you make progress, after you achieve a milestone, then an announcement is worth it. Question 16. Why is there basically zero PR? Well, we're timing it according for maximum bang for the buck. Simple. Question 17. Why is VXV so under the radar? They have so in capitals there. So under the radar in general if these partnerships are taking place. Again, you will not find or have Microsoft yelling about Vectorspace from the mountaintops until there's something to talk about. That's how it works, based on progress. Question 18. LinkedIn shows about 23 employees for the company, and I understand there's partners/customers in the pipeline. I was curious to know if the company is close to revenue or onboarding, or are we still in the hiring process? Also, what is KF's advisory role with Pomovi and Solmcoin? Or is this even still a project? All right, we'll take this one at a time. This is a multi-part question here, so this is just the first part. And in terms of LinkedIn showing 23 employees and customers and partners in the pipeline, and this person being curious as to know if there's revenue coming in yet. We do not have consequential revenue coming in yet, and we are continuing to onboard. We are in fact continuing to engage in customer discovery. Or are we still in the hiring process? This person asks. Well, you can do both. Also, what is KF's advisory role with Pomovi? That was discussed earlier. Do a search on Pomovi in Telegram. The next part of this multi-part question goes on doing some research. Memvi was promising, formerly FashionNet, before acquired by KF, who installed the new CEO after a few years. But it ran in the development stages until nearly all the cash was burned. Never was able to get off the ground, now called Adaptive Media, with the other CEO. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so your research is partially correct. It is true. We ran a company by the name of Memvi. And it is true that company was what was called a shell company, similar to today's SPAC, S-P-A-C. We decided to swap out the operations. Well, first we purchased the shell. We swapped out the operations, made sure it was clean, made sure it didn't have any overhang or legal issues. We swapped the name out and brought a team in, and we're publicly traded. That was a way for us to get public market exposure after the 2008 and 9 crisis. If you notice, companies that had public market exposure after 2008 and 2009 were able to recover. Those startups in VC's portfolios that did not have public market exposure and whose valuations were controlled by just a handful of guys in a room did not survive. We wanted public market exposure, and that's exactly what we got. And it's also true that after a few years, a new CEO was installed. His name was Michael Poutre. You can actually look him up. He wound up on the Forbes billionaires list for a quick minute before the SEC went after him. And this is a person that we did not know had a few bad apples in their barrel. But they went ahead and brought in another management team. And this is when we had no involvement. This is when I had no involvement. Absolute minimal involvement besides a few signatures here and there with the company. And that's when they went ahead and moved it forward in the way that they thought best. And it turned into a debacle, to say the least. Next, and this is still question 18 here. I know these things are private, but just want confidence in this startup that it won't spend so much money before it can really start generating revenue. StarMine.ai failed due to funding, as KF stated. But it's also the same foundation and still references links with Vectorspace for some reason. Okay, so this is misinformation. This is a really good example of misinformation, of somebody being significantly uninformed. We understand that there's misinformation that circulates every company, and we try to address these, nip this in the bud as soon as we can. This piece of information will continue to float around related to, number one, startups and what's called runway. How much money do you have in the bank? Can you survive? Can you raise capital? How close are you to revenue? How close are you to consequential revenue? One thing that we know is that it does take time to achieve revenue. We anticipated this, having experience in big corps and small corps and startups in Silicon Valley, having been inside them and having founded them ourselves. We understand the pitfalls and perils when it comes to achieving or crossing that chasm and achieving revenue, not just user growth or adoption. And if you note, this is a focus that is very hard to maintain for most crypto companies. Some, or let's say most, don't have a focus on revenue. We do, and it's based on consequential revenue. And in terms of Starmine.ai failed due to funding, that is incorrect. Starmine did not fail due to funding. A lot of the time when you're a founder, you invite investor bases. You invite lead investors in. We had one of our lead investors who worked with us at our former startup, SeekPod, and this investor, in so many words, just got spooked based on transactions associated to whatever they wanted to do in the company. So they left. And this was pretty common. If you were doing a startup any time between 2014 and 2018, there were a lot of lead investors that did not understand crypto, got together dev teams, engineers, and wanted to have a go at ramping up a company and achieving revenue and profitability. But most, of course, did not have a focus on revenue. But the point I'm making is that when your lead investor leaves because they're either spooked by crypto or whatever it is, it's best to start clean. Very simple. So again, Starmine had nothing to do with failing based on funding. And that wasn't a failure. Our lead investor walked away, and we had to restart. That's common. This continues, so my question really is about the capital. This is a startup, a couple of years in with huge potential, a lot of spending, and a previously failed ICO with some same purpose and potential. Okay, so that's not true. First off, with a lot of spending, that is a blatant spread of misinformation. Who says a lot of spending? I thought that we were a private company. I thought that we were following an industry standard and we'll be reporting based on industry standards. So whoever this is that has private access to our books, we would certainly like to know. Please come forward. And in terms of previously failed ICO, again, misinformation. Where is this coming from? Please come forward, whoever has provided this information, and we will be happy to provide you with documentation or anything that you need to correct your records. Correct the misinformation. This continues. Can you speak on the relationship between Pomovi and Songcoin? And yes, we did speak on that. As mentioned earlier, we're not going to beat that dead horse. And again, just to reiterate, my recommendation is to use the search interface connected to Telegram. If you don't find the information that you're looking for, feel free to message us on Telegram, and we'll be happy to provide you with any details so that baseless speculation will not abound. And we're also not going to waste any time on Twitter. Put these things to rest. We're not going to waste any time on Twitter to put a few dollars in anyone's pocket either. And you can take that to the bank. Our aim is to teach everyone how to think beyond the pennies and into the pounds. Question 19. Can you please talk about the Qcoin trading competition and its goals? Well, there's not much to say there. This is a standard operating procedure for exchanges like Qcoin. That's all that we can say. We're not putting too much energy into that. Question 20. How do you see Vectorspace positioned when the fourth industrial revolution comes online? Datasets will exponentially increase. They are doing that right now. Artificial intelligence and machine learning will be a big part of the fourth industrial revolution, which makes datasets an even bigger part. Question 21. Any interest in meeting with Blue Origin? Maybe Boeing. We'll be partnering with launch companies around the world, a variety of them, of all kinds, as we have Space Biosciences units available to them. Each of them we have observed. It's kind of easy to observe. These are launching companies. They specialize in rocketry, rocket science. They do not specialize in the science of molecular biology. And of course that right there means that they simply don't have Space Biosciences units that specialize in the stressors and the countermeasures related to the human body during spaceflight. That's what we're here for. Question 22. How cool are tardigrades, and what role will they play in the future of molecular bioscience in space? So yes, tardigrades are cool, also called water bears. We'd encourage anyone to look up the word tardigrade. That's TARDIGRADES, and radiation. Raf Podolsky mentioned that tardigrades are something that he believes we should explore. I believe that too. I think that's a good idea. We have a number of species, phenotypes that we want to explore that can withstand massive amounts of radiation exposure, in particular tardigrades. They repair their DNA much faster than humans, and they've been studied for some time. They're what the Discovery Channel calls an extremophile. You may have heard of them. We'll be analyzing and studying all kinds of extremophiles. And tardigrades are in particular interesting to us. If you look up tardigrades and spaceflight, you'll find all kinds of information in terms of their relationship to molecular biology and space biosciences. Question 23. How close is humanity to being able to produce and exploit space? And how will Vectorspace be able to obtain revenue from it? Good question. We're not going to be mining any trillion-dollar asteroids, but we will be protecting the bodies that do. The market for personalized medicine will go beyond Earth. It's going to be galactic someday. Question 24. When you say collaboration, is it just pitching an idea or partnership? Do you have any solid offer or commitments from any of the big companies to license your software? And if so, some details of it, and when they would expect to generate actual income from licensing. Okay, so when we say collaboration, we mean collaboration. We mean scientific collaboration. We mean formal scientific collaborations. We mean the kind of scientific collaborations you will see in the news. So you can look forward to that before Christmas. In terms of solid commitments for licensing, we're gunning for subscriptions first. We see more money in the SaaS DaaS model, that's software as a service, or Datasets as a service model. And we're going to be leading with the science. What that means is that after our public announcements related to our scientific collaborators, we'll have something to talk about. And what we do won't be so unbelievable at that point. In the meantime, we'll maintain a particle beam-like focus on revenue. Next, we'll move to our strategy section. And to reiterate, for any that would like to quell misinformation, the most important thing you can do is execute a search on our Telegram channel for anything that you would like. It's more than likely your concerns have been addressed. It's more than likely you will find a goldmine of information. And again, what we do is unbelievable. We're enabling cutting-edge science, and to most, science fiction. How do we plan to solve for this? Well, we are going to lead with the science and with full transparency. Full transparency is part of the scientific method or process. Others have to be able to reproduce your results. We expect much of the public, especially in the cryptosphere, to doubt. But just like kindling for a fire, shorts, doubters, naysayers, all represent fuel to take us higher. This concludes our call for this week. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to submit them online.